Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's good to have you here. Thank you for sort of sitting on this side of the room. It's much better for me to be able to access my laptop from over here. So, welcome. Who's enjoying our conference so far? Yeah, been learning stuff? That's good. Well, my name's Leanne Rhodes. I am the Strategic Solutions Director at SlaveCheck, which is a relatively new organisation that started really just last year. And we're a tech company that's looking to have solutions around issues of modern slavery, and particularly around forced labour. And today I want to talk to you about how we do that. But a little bit more about me. Before I was doing this role, I was leading the European Freedom Network over in Europe, which is a network a lot like this one, of 270 anti-trafficking organisations right across Europe. So I love networks and I love coalitions. And I love what you're doing here at our conference. So it is great to be here. Ooh, we've got a few more people coming in. Grab seats where you can. So I remember the very first time I ever met anyone that had been a victim of forced labour. I was in Portugal, I was living over there, and I was just catching an Uber, and I was talking to the Uber driver, and we were talking for a little bit, and I asked him, well, where are you from? Because obviously not from Portugal, and he said he was from Nepal. And that just got my ears pricked up a little bit, because I know that there's lots of trafficking between Nepal and Portugal. And I said, oh, well, when did you arrive here? And he goes, oh, a couple of years ago. I said, oh, where did you live when you first came? And he said, Alentejo. And that's the rural area of the country. So again, that set off a little alarm bell for me. And I said, oh, where did you work? And he said, on a farm. Again, another little tick that went off in my mind. And I said to him, well, what were the conditions like on the farm? And then he just opened up and he said they were very, very bad, like very, very bad conditions. And it turned out that he had been working on a farm with about 200 other men, and they had been living in shipping containers. And now Portugal's quite a hot and humid country. So they had been living in shipping containers. They had been working on the fields, doing fruit picking, and doing that all day. And they were forced to pay €100 a week to live in that shipping container. And then every time they wanted to go to town, to go to the supermarket, they would drive them, but they would charge them for the trip and then charge them to come back, which of course meant that they were in this cycle where they could never get out of save any money. Like, there was always whatever they earned had to be paid, and it was in this kind of business deal kind of arrangement. And then apart from that, if you move to Portugal, you can get a visa. You can move there first and then work and get a visa, but you need to have enough pay slips to show that you've got the work. So people would come on the promise of getting this visa, and when they got there, they would never give them the pay slips, so they were never able to prove that they were able to work. So again, they just became very reliant on the person that they were working for, and they were just stuck in this situation. So this man managed to get out of his own accord, but it was just a very, very bad situation, and that was in agriculture. And that was the first time I had been working in anti-trafficking for a long time, but I had been working in the sexual exploitation side, which is, we all know, a very different ballgame. So that was the first time I had met someone from forced labour. And yeah, it was very impactful, and I found that it was really easy to find if I looked for it. And it just alluded me to the scale of the problem that we have. And I'm sure many of you are interacting with people daily that have got stories similar to that man. But today, I want to talk about how we can use technology in this space, and particularly how slave checking is in technology and how you can be part of it. So first I want to look at the scale of our problem. I'm going to throw up some stats, and I'm sure all of you have seen them before. They're probably very common stats. You probably put them in all your funding applications. So everyone familiar with these stats? 49.6 million people in modern slavery today. We've got, in the G20 countries, we've got an imported $468 billion worth of products being made at high risk of slavery. Again, to this group, none of this is new, but I want to just alert us to the scale, like the number of times we hear millions or billions or trillions in this. So we see high-risk sectors, electronics, garments, palm oil, solar panels, textiles. All of this is on the walkthrough website. You can find it very easily. Here we see how much the G20 countries are involved in products that have high risk of modern slavery in them. And then down here we see the International Labour Organization, 28 million men, women and children in forced labour. These are big, big numbers. So this is the size of the problem that we in this room are working to address. It is a big problem. It is a complex problem. And we all have our part of it, but it's a huge, huge problem. Then, let's look at it. Who are all the actors in this space? We've got a bit of a diagram here of different roles in society, different people, different groups that might be part of the problem and part of the solution. So again, we start off with people that have fallen victim to modern slavery, 50 million people, 49.6 million people. There is a lot there. So again, we're seeing millions. Then we have 200 governments signed up to the UN Sustainability Goals, particularly for 8.7. So by 2030, that's only 6 years away, to take immediate and effective measures to eradicate forced labour, end modern slavery and human trafficking, and secure the prohibition and elimination of the worst forms of child labour, including recruitment and the use of child soldiers. And by 2025, that's next year, end child labour in all its forms. We're not really quite on track for that, are we? But the scale, 200 governments are working on this problem or signing up to work on it. We've got, there's a lot of actors in this field, isn't there? Then, again, we've got 200 countries and their global agencies, their law enforcement, their intelligence working on this problem as well. That adds a whole other range of people. Then, we've got the 500 or 500,000 reporting entities in the G20 that need to give modern slavery statements and account for modern slavery and their supply chain every single year. 500,000 companies working on this. Then they have 300 million suppliers in their global supply chains. It's a pretty big problem, isn't it? Are you starting to get an idea of the scale here? This is the issue that we're dealing with. Then there's 4.7 billion people that buy all those products that those companies make. There's a lot of actors in this. Then that produces an unknown number of products that are in supply chains that have at least 12 separate product coding systems in the world. That's the smallest number we'll see today. But yeah, if you think about Amazon, they have their own product coding thing. Trade routes, they have their own product coding system. Shipping containers, they have their own, and so there's all this mismatching and miscommunication, like different languages that different people are speaking on things. So there's not only just our actual language that we speak that provides complexity, but then there's all these system languages as well. Then there's 10 million registered NGOs in the world working in this space. Well, not just on this, but 10 million NGOs, but you know, whatever you're working on, you're going to hit human trafficking. So there's lots of players. Then there's 250 million unionised workers in the world that are all working to have good pay, to have good working conditions, so they're part of the solution as well. And then you've got the capital markets. There's actually $100 trillion dedicated toward ESG funding in the world. So this is a rather big problem, and we can feel very small when it comes to looking at it. And that's why I want to talk about the role of technology, because we can scale. Technology can scale, so we can get to these big numbers if we use technology. But we have another situation that's going on in our world, and that's all the global legislation changes that are going on. So you've got, you know, for the last, 14 years, we've started to see accountability come in for corporates. This isn't the whole list, but I just wanted to show you that, you know, the world is adopting different stances on it, and we can make use of this. So we've got California has to show transparency in their supply chains. The UK introduced the Modern Slavery Act, which corporates had to, over a certain amount of turnover, had to show that they didn't have slavery in their supply chain. France has got a Duty of Vigilance Act. Australia's got a Modern Slavery Act. That impacts all the corporates that have a turnover of more than 100 million a year. So you've got all these big businesses starting to have to pay attention to modern slavery, which is a really good thing for us, and it helps to scale. But this is the situation that's going on in the world. Germany's just introduced it. The US has brought in the bigger Forced Labour Prevention Act. Canada's got a Modern Slavery Act now. And the European Union, which is 28 member states, have just voted this year to bring in both a corporate sustainability due diligence directive and a forced labour regulation. So the world is changing. And because the world is changing, we can use these things. Like, these are good things for us to use when it comes to addressing modern slavery. So this is an example of what Australian companies have to do to meet their requirements for the Modern Slavery Act. So the first thing is, you know, they need to identify reporting entities. So, you know, anyone over 100 million a year, you're a reporting entity. So it's not everyone, it's not every business, but it's the big ones. But then they have to describe their supply chains. Yep, I can say who I buy off, and then who I buy off, and then who I buy off. Easy, sort of, not always easy. Easy to say tier 1. And then providing other relevant information in their modern slavery statement to the government. You can put whatever you want in there, so that's fairly easy. But these things are describing the modern risks in your supply chain, describing the actions that you're taking, and describing how you assess the effectiveness of these actions in your consulting process with your subsidiary companies. That's a lot harder. And this is what they need to do. They need to be able to investigate, remediate and monitor their extended supply chain. So not just the people that they build their products off, but the next layer and the next layer and the next layer. So this is what corporates are facing, and this is a really good thing for us to leverage, because they have to do something about the modern slavery in their supply chain, but they're not NGOs. They don't know. They don't know what to do. You're NGOs. You need funding. They've got funding. Can you see a bit of a picture forming here? But how do you know who to work with and everything like that? There's a bit of a chain, and that's where Slave Check comes in, and that's where we're using tech to bring all of these groups together, because we need a place for all of these groups to meet. But how do you do it on scale? Well, we use tech. So now what I want to talk to you through is Slave Check's system for doing this, and it's got a number of components, and I'll do my best not to get too technical, which will be easy because I am not a super technical person. So I think we all understand that when it comes to forced labour, there's a demand side and there's a supply side. I'm talking to the converted in this room, you know these things. So up on the demand side, you've got the corporates, investors, and the people that buy all the products that are making people in slavery. They probably don't know that they're doing that, but they keep wanting more specials. I know in Australia, the clothes we buy and everything impacts, you know, groups in India, China, different places. So we've got this demand side, and then we've got the supply side, where we've got people with lived experience that have lived an experience they should never have to live. And they know what happens on the supply side. You know, they're forced to work in factories, they never get paid, maybe their passports get taken from them, they're enslaved. So what Slave Check does is we look at helping corporates to figure out where their tiers are. So we build software for all this, so that they can work down their tiers. But then it's great to know who's in your tiers, but how do you know if there's slavery in them? Well, that's when we work up, from the ground up. You know, it's mainly criminals that are doing the activity, and that works up. And then we need something. So we've got our top-down supply chain, and then we've got our bottom-up information that's coming from the field, which, by the way, most of you have in your heads. So a lot of the information that you come across in your day-to-day work is very valuable in helping to solve this problem. But there's a technology and data challenge, like how do we measure these supply chains with all this information on the field? Where do we match that? Like, where does that happen? Because, you know, you're on the field, you know what happens, you know that farm down there, everyone's talking about that there's people are being taken in their passports being taken, they're being held in some kind of slavery. And you might even know the company the company name, you might know some information, but you might not know the whole chain. So how do we get that to happen? And that's where Slave Check comes in, is we have Slave Check AI. So what we do is we use databases and information that's around, trade data, all sorts of things, to bring that all into one space to map it. But that is not enough. So we can map, and we can find some connections there between the two lots. Does this make sense? Yep. So we can find some connections there. But we need more than that. So what we've done is, at SlaveCheck, we've created what we call a business compliance platform. And that's essentially a place where corporates sign up and they put in all their suppliers, and then those suppliers put in their suppliers, and then those suppliers put in their suppliers, and we get that picture of that top triangle. So we start to build that, because then we can match it with this, because there's a lot of information that needs to be matched. And remember, we want to be able to do it at scale. So we have a business compliance platform for that. Then there's civil society, you. Faith-based groups, media, NGOs, people doing research, trade unions. Again, you have a lot of information in your head that can help to solve this problem. But how do we get that information to a place where it can be used? Well, I'm glad you asked. There's also law enforcement. They know a lot about the criminal activity that's been going on. They know a lot about the traffickers. But again, how does that information get to the corporates who need to do something about it? So this is where we have what we call the SlaveCheck Solutions Platform. And that's a place, so this side is for the corporates, this side is for the NGOs and civil society and groups that are working on it. And I'm actually going to show you some of what we're doing there. But it's used for two things. It's used for doing online think tanks, so what we call collective intelligence. But then it's also used for gathering data from the field. How do we gather data from the field? Well, we actually don't know yet. And we want to brainstorm that with you. We want to think about, well, what's going to, because we understand NGOs are busy people. Someone who is a counsellor or that's providing services for a survivor, they actually hear a lot of information that could be useful in this team about perpetrators, about where they're acting, about where they are, but they don't have a place to give that information. So what we use is we use the solutions platform to work to try and find a solution to that. And then, further from there, now, some of these things are not existing yet. Again, we've been going for 1 year. The business compliance platform exists. The solution platform exists. The consumer guide, because we know that consumers want to only buy products that aren't made with slavery. In fact, we commissioned some research in Australia and they interviewed 1,000 people, and just random people, and 87% of them said that they would not buy a product if they knew that it was made with slavery. So that's good. We've got consumers that want to do something about it as well. But how do they know if a product's made with slavery or not? Well, this is sort of the long-term plan, is we want to build something that they can look at on their mobile phone that gives them a red light, yellow light, or green light to say whether it's made with slavery or not. So, does that make sense so far? So we've got all of these things. So SlaveCheck is this part. So we essentially do the tech, okay? And then we build connections with the different groups. We are not the group that's out on the field running the program with the the people running the prevention programs or investigating or remediating or doing any of those things, but we're the connection between those things, because that is actually your work. That's what you do. So we want to be the glue in between those places. And in fact, our founder, Tim Murray, he has had a lot of experience in doing this. He went through the whole health system in Australia and found the gaps where things weren't working, and then worked to automate the gaps so that the people who needed the information could get it in the time that they needed. And I think it's fair to say, when it comes to modern slavery, there is a definite time lag on information that we need. So quite often we're building prevention programs based on data that's 2 years old by the time the report comes out and it goes through the academic cycle and everything. So everything's sort of always running behind. So the good thing about tech is that it can scale, but it can also work in real time if we want it to, if we all work together. So we need all of these groups working together, and I know that you're all non-profits that are always dealing with funding, and you're probably already thinking by now, great, but how does all this get paid for? Has anyone thought that yet? So this system, we have a for-profit version of slave check and we have a non-profit version of slave check. So I work on the non-profit side, but the for-profit side actually charges the corporates for the service. So not their suppliers, but only the reporting entities. So only those ones that are turning over more than 100 million. Now they have the requirements, the legislative requirements to make sure that slavery, if it's found in their supply chain, is dealt with. And then they have to do something about it. So if we use this system to find slavery, then they have to do something about it. Well, who's going to do something about it? They're not an NGO, but you are. So we can connect you to the projects, and we do that through our solutions platform to help them. In fact, we had a customer recently, and they started mapping their supply chains, and our team on the for-purpose side, the Slave Check Foundation, this is where I work, the team on this side just spent a little bit of time looking at their supply chain, and we talked to the modern slavery coordinator, and we said, we think that you'll have slavery here in this part of your business, out on the field. And they're like, no way, we don't have slavery in our work. And we're like, well, you know, this work area is known as a high-risk area. You've got lots of migrants working there. We kind of know that these are the signs. And they said, no, there's no slavery there. Anyway, they were doing a field trip the very next week, and lo and behold, they found 68 people that had been in slavery in their supply chain that they had no idea about. So that was good. They were able to do something about that, and all those people got remediated and everything. So that's really excellent. So the model does work. So that's what we're looking at. So that brings all of that information together. Now, I wanted to show you the solutions platform, because this is the side where NGOs can go in. Now, who has submitted their business card in the business card drop? If you can raise your hand if you've done that already.
Not yet.
To win the prize? No one in this room, and you're all here because of tech.
Actually, we try in the morning, in that morning, but actually it's not
Okay.
work
If
yet.
you have any questions about it, just come and see me. But I know people are, because my inbox is filling up. So if you've done that, then you're already on this system. So you've already created an account. And then we can, so what we want to do, I wanted to show you quickly what the solutions platform system is. But really, the solutions platform is all about bringing people together to innovate and to brainstorm ideas and to think together for a solution. It bites the packages into bite-sized bits, and we call them a campaign. So the whole solutions platform is built around campaigns. And this is the place where people can ask questions, they can give ideas, but it's also a place where they can submit tenders or submit bids for tenders. Because what happens is when we work with a corporate and we find a problem, what we then do is we go, let's find out all the people in that area that are experts in the field on that area, so NGOs in that area, maybe community groups, maybe union workers, and we bring them together in a campaign to really go, how can we deal with this problem? What can we do to solve it? So it's a community-led approach because it's not us solving the problem, it's those in the community solving the problem. We're just providing the infrastructure for that to happen. And this infrastructure is good because it can scale. So you can have 10 people in a campaign, or you can have 100,000 people in a campaign. Imagine if we could get like 100,000 people together to think about an issue. That's pretty powerful, isn't it? So that's what we do with the solutions platform. So it's a place where we can ask questions and design systems and come up with collaborative ways to work. So groups like Bosch, if you've ever heard of that company, they have over 100,000 employees, and they use software like this where they have all of their employees on it, and they have them all having like a big, huge suggestion box, or they might run a campaign, once a year to say, what do you see in your job that could be done to be a cost saving, and then they give a prize to the person that comes up with the best ideas. And they save millions of dollars every year because they're consulting their staff who are in the place, and you've got this staff member that's like, well, if we use this screw that costs 5 cents instead of this screw that costs 20 cents when we're making this product, they can do so much. They can save so much money. So Bosch use it to save money, but we're using it to create solutions. So that's what we can do. I also love it because it means that we can work cross-sector. You can invite people into a conversation, different people into a conversation, and working on a problem. But because you've got a corporate that's sponsoring the whole thing, there's funding there for it, which is very good. So it's kind of like got an inbuilt funding model in the whole system. So, when we were talking earlier about being reliant on donors, it's kind of like that, because now we have donors or corporates that actually have a responsibility to do something and need to do something about the slavery that they find in their supply chain. So they want to do something about it, and we would want to do something about it as well, because we deal with it every day. So let me take you on a bit of a journey. I'm going to take you on a journey in the system of an actual campaign. And this is a real one we're going to launch next week, and I would love for you all to be involved. If you want to be involved, just sign up for the business card drop and you'll get an invitation. Or come and see me and we'll get you sorted. But what we want to do is we want to work out a way that works for NGOs to build that data that's coming up from the bottom end, because you see a lot of perpetrators. I'm sure you're sick of them getting away with stuff, and you want them to be held accountable. Maybe the police in your area aren't doing their job, or something, but you know, imagine if the corporates at the top end were starting to put pressure on them as well. So if what we want to ask is, how might information on perpetrators of forced labour be safely gathered and shared? So how could NGOs submit data in a way that actually works for them? And what would be your concerns? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you do that? So we would love for you to be involved in this conversation about that, so that we can work out and build a system that's actually going to work for NGOs. So, you know, you might go, well, we need to be paid for that. It's like, great, how should you be paid? How much should you be paid for submitting data? How does that happen? How does the data get verified? Don't know. But that's what we want to think collectively together. So, I'm just going to go into the system now, just to show you a few things. So I'll probably have to log in again, because I've been sitting here for a bit. Okay, so when you log into the system, you have access to a bunch of campaigns. Some of them are ones that anyone can join, some of them are ones that you're invited to because you're seen as having expertise in that area. So there's a few different campaigns we've got going on at the moment. So the first one is, how might information of perpetrators of forced labour be safely gathered and shared? But we've got other ones, like how can we clean up slavery from the commercial cleaning industry in the UK? How can we map upstream supply chains into China? You know, these are all big problems that need to be solved. But then we also have submissions, like you might have a random idea about something else that you think, well, this might be good to put down, and you can just put it in a suggestion box. And we actually have, if we go into the channels, you'll see that here's the Arrow business card drop channel here, where people are starting to send photos of their business card, so that you can all have that information. So it's good for sharing like that as well. So I want to say, let's take a look at this campaign. So the first thing is here's the question, and great, you can just submit an idea. I've got an idea on how we could do that. Then you can go, here's a bit more detailed information about the question, like what is it that we're looking for, what are the timings, when are we looking for answers by, and you can submit information on that. So here we're looking for ideas on how NGOs and other in-field witnesses can safely share information on perpetrators of forced labour. And then it sort of goes on a bit about why, but you guys would know why. The type of information for identifying and reporting on perpetrators would include, well, where's the workplace? What's the place where they're working? What work were they doing? Were they shelling prawns? Were they sewing textiles? Were they making cotton out of wood chips? What were they doing? And who are they working for? Like, is it a business? Is there a business name or anything like that? Or is there other pertinent information that you think is helpful? Because this information maps back, going up those triangles. So again, we're looking for ideas, either big or small. They might be things just to move the agenda forward a bit, or they might be things to move the agenda forward a lot. But we've got ideas coming in. And then you can come here and you can go, well, what's already been happening? Like, what have other people been saying about this? And you can come here and you can see what's the latest activity that's happening. You know, people have been putting in some thoughts. You know, 80% of ideas actually are based on other ideas that other people have had, and we're just really improving them. So that's why we have this kind of inspiration place where you can see what other people have been doing, and you might go, oh, that's a really good idea, and that triggers something else. You know, the guy who created Velcro? Do you know what Velcro is? That like the tape that you stick together and it holds clothes and stuff together. That was inspired by taking his dog for a walk, and he saw how all the little burrs got into the dog's fur and they were so hard to get out that he was inspired by the looping mechanism on the burrs, and that's what created Velcro. So we've got all these activity that you can see. We put down a whole lot of things, inspiration that might be helpful just to trigger ideas about it, that might just help you get you thinking about what might be an idea. And this is not something to spend loads of time on. It's like, I'm just going to spend 10 minutes and think about something and then go, there's an idea. And then you come along, you can see the ideas that people have already had. Some are ideas, some are questions. So we've got one idea here, create a mobile dashboard for submitting perpetrator information. So we can go into that and have a look at that. And we can see that someone, so me, because I'm setting it up. I put create a mobile dashboard that would allow those in the field to submit perpetrator information. We all have phones and it makes it easy for us to submit. The kind of information we could submit is these things. And then I just noted there should be a way to submit this information without any trace for people who are concerned with safety. And then after submitting information, you could get a case number or a code so that you can add information that, like it's just 10 minutes of thinking. But then someone else might come along and go, oh, that'd be good if we did that, but what if we also did this? And you start building on each other's ideas. And it just becomes a great innovation space for problem solving because we're building on one another's ideas. So this kind of technology is used in the innovation space all the time. So that's what we can do. So let's say we wanted to submit an idea. I'm just going to go back to here. Does anyone in the room have an idea about how it might work, no matter how abstract? Give you a second to think. Or maybe, yep, Ian.
What's your idea about having a mobile dashboard or some kind of app for tracking these information? And I think I've heard other organizations like Stop the Traffic or others that are doing similar things. So how might organizations work together or share information in a way that is going to help everyone?
Yep, that's a really good question. So you could either put that in the comments on that actual idea, or you could create a new idea. We're going to do that just for the example. So we'll go submit. We're going to do a new idea. We'll just give it a title. It's your idea. So what? Just a short title.
Sharing information, targeting information among
other organizations. Okay, I'll just type that in. Does that cover it for you? Excuse the typos. Okay. And then you can choose, do you want others to see the idea or do you want to just submit it but keep it to yourself? Maybe you want to develop it a bit more, think about it a bit more, or maybe you're like, well, I want to own this idea. And these are always listed under your name, so it always goes back to you, the author of these ideas. You can give it a picture if you want, and then you can put a bit more information in here. And you can also, like maybe you would go, well, Stop the Traffic have got a great app, so you can put a link in there for Stop the Traffic, like information, and see how it starts all building a big picture for how we can all work together in solving a problem. So that's sort of a quick look at the solutions platform. But then what would happen is if we said, like, we did a campaign like this and we have some people like an evaluating team, which could be us or it could be a group in the community that are actually evaluating all the ideas and looking at how feasible and how reasonable they are or how much they cost. And then we can go back to the corporate that's sponsoring the whole thing. Or maybe we've already got a budget from them and go, we can do this within this budget. So yep, let's go ahead. So when we want to go ahead, we could look at the original people that put the idea together and say, hey, do you all want to form a team to do this? And then we have like a tendering process where instead of submitting ideas, you submit proposals to win, or bids to win the tender for that project. So that's how NGOs can then get funding for the projects that they've been thinking through. Does that make sense? Yep. So really, that's the whole. If I go back to here, that's the whole top-down method of the different things that we bring that helps to solve this problem and bring information up. So we're connecting. We have the solutions platform that becomes a place to collect data as well as think tank data and apply for bids that it does those three things. So that's that. So if you want to sign up to the platform to be in a place for those questions, all you need to do is sign up there. If you don't want to do the business card drop and you don't want to win a registration, you can just sign up and create an account with the information there, but you can use the same link for that. You just don't upload your business card. So we would really love for you to be involved in helping to solve that question. How do we gather that data if that interests you? How do we get that data from the field? Now we've also been looking at how can we collect it. So one of the ideas that we've been working on is how do we collect data from helplines around the world. And to do that, we actually did a research project on the solutions platform where we worked with some people with lived experience in Australia and New Zealand, and we ended up producing this report on recommendations for helpline design and operation for people with lived experience, because we're working in Australia and New Zealand that don't actually have a helpline for modern slavery, not like a lot of your countries which are way ahead. So we produced this report. Again, Slave Check are helping or are willing to help with providing tech. So when you need tech, feel free to have a conversation with us where it becomes the glue for finding information and getting it to where it needs to go. So I will stop there. We've just got a few minutes left, so we can leave that open for questions if anyone has any questions. Yes, over there? Not quite. Yep. that is a very good question, and I'll just repeat it for the live stream. And that is, it's great to be collecting data, but let's say if we've got a counsellor that's collecting data or submitting data from something that they've heard about a perpetrator, how does that get verified? And that is an extremely good question, and it's one that we have not answered. And that's part of what we want to explore actually in this campaign that we've been talking about, because, you know, how do we know that that's true? We can't just put it up there and accuse someone of something they haven't done. So that will be part of the question and part of the thing that we need to sort through. And what usually happens with campaigns is you have a sort of a wider campaign, and then we go, oh, this is a real issue, we need to have another campaign to think through that bit, and then that bit, and then eventually it comes to a problem, but we can all think through. So I sort of answered your question by not answering your question, so yeah.
Just continuing on with that thought, obviously it doesn't verify the base of where that information is coming from. But as a first tier, first basis of that, is there an additional information or education point that you could put in that might be important for people to go through a checklist of how to ensure that their data is being collected? Some NGOs might have a really great understanding on that, but I guess most people to just assume that everyone's from the same understanding, I feel like that could be a really interesting education point to add on there to try and do that first check that it is being verified.
Yeah. Okay, so the question was, and I hope I get it correct, is again, how do we verify that information, and that different people who are using the system to submit information might have different understandings of what the information should be and what's real information, what's not information. Is that kind of got it?
Yeah, and if there was like a bit of an education or video steps to kind of get a bit of a basic understanding on checks we can do ourselves.
Okay, and is there any kind of education or training or check system that can go through? Again, this is not a system that is yet created. So the model is there, and that's what we're wanting to achieve through this campaign, is for people like you to come along and say those things. So it forces us to think about it, but then it also forces us to come up with, well, what would be a good way to do that? So the data collection of evidence system does not yet exist. So it's something we're wanting to create, and that's our starting point, is to run a campaign to understand how that would be developed and how that would work, and why NGOs would be motivated to submit data on it, because that's a big piece as well, isn't it? Like, you're all busy. So how do we do that?
Okay, you are talking about the different countries' legislations.
Yes.
For the elimination of human trafficking, labor trafficking. But in these legislations, what do you think, there is any dimension regarding the technology or no? Because if we use the technology for the elimination of labor trafficking, so every country takes steps according to their legislation. So is there any technological dimensions in these legislations or no?
So the question is there any technological guidelines for the dimensions for the legislations according to the different legislations that are happening? So the Canada, UK and everything. Every country is going to have their own thing. I haven't seen any modern slavery acts that say that you have to do it with any particular technology. Have you seen anything, Stephen? No. Stephen Morse is over there, and if you want to know anything about any of those laws, come talk to him. He knows all those really well and consults on them. But it's not that advanced. I think this is a lot of new legislation that's coming in, and you know, each new country that adds to it adds something new, but I haven't seen anything about how the technology should be used. Yeah.
So if I understand correctly, Slave Check is capitalizing on the need for corporates to validate and verify their supply chains to make sure they're not using forced labor. And so you're made a Slave Check solutions to kind of like help NGOs to kind of provide that information for forced labor. So is that focus kind of more the forced labor of modern day slavery, or is it also focusing also on the sex trafficking?
No, we're particularly focusing on forced labour, and the model's all built around those corporate laws that are there. So definitely looking at forced labour. I mean, the others come up against it. Sometimes, depending what country you're in, prostitution can be called forced labour, depending on the laws in that country. So, but no, it's more designed for your product-related things. Okay, I have 1 minute left. So we've got one question over here.
My question is whether there's any examples that we've had so far, either through the platform or before it was created, where an NGO has actually been funded by a business that wants that NGO to help them tackle an identified slavery example in their supply chain. So the model based on the businesses will want to fund action on the ground.
Yeah.
Is there some evidence of that yet?
I think it's increasing over time. We certainly haven't seen it yet. We're too new, but we're certainly seeing in the conversations that we're having with the corporates that they want to do the right thing. Not all do. Some just want to have their statement and have their risks gone away. Remember, you've also got the system of where the laws are increasing in the amount of pressure and they're getting better and better. So the due diligence laws. So, you know, way back in the UK 2018 laws, you know, you had to put a statement up, but no one got in trouble if they didn't. Whereas the due diligence laws that are coming in 2024, the directors can go to jail. So the laws are getting better, which means there's much more uptake for that. Okay, time is up. Stephen, you wanted to say something?
Whether or not they're funded or not, Electronic Watch are an NGO that are working with corporates to address issues in licensing. So whether or not that's looking at the mining of minerals coming out of, say, DRC, as well as the production of devices.
Yeah, and there's actually a few groups around that are starting to become together in industries to deal with to deal with a particular sector as well. Well, I hope that's been informative for you. If you would like to be part of that campaign to work out that data, we would love to have you involved. You can get to it there. If you can't find it there or you have any problems, just come and see me and we'll get you sorted. But thank you very much.